Welcome back. So this is the more lighter side of the spectrum of our conversations. We are talking Cobra Kai, and the reason we're talking Cobra Kai, we were on a show a couple weeks ago, and Hugh, you were extolling the virtues of how good bad this show is, and I got the impression from messaging you this week that you thought the show was extremely good, and you can't wait to watch the next one.
Yeah, it's extremely good bad. So I've got a cross trainer in the house, and we've got one of those little screens on it that hooks up to Netflix. And I saw the trailer for it. I thought, I'm curious, like any middle-aged young man grew up in the 80s, you would have probably heard or seen Karate Kid. So okay, what's this looking like now, 30 years on? So I had to scratch that itch. I gave it a go, and it was kind of so bad in a few ways that I had to kind of keep watching. I kind of liked it, and I've blitzed both seasons, and I've just a few days ago finished the end of season 2. So I don't want to give too much more away than that at the moment, because I'm very intrigued to know what Shawn thinks, because viewers, we're in the same boat here. I actually don't know if he's going to 100% trash this whole thing or whether he secretly is in love with it. What were your thoughts, Shawn, from the first episode?
So I was trying to think. Well, first thing I need to, because there was a lot of thoughts that went through my head. It was really positive and then really negative. Before we get started, I just came prepared to go over this review here. I'm just gonna.
Oh,
it's a little
birthday
here.
Treat.
Yeah, but I also needed to get through the review. Here we go. So I sat down and I committed time to watching this. And what I want to do is I want to give you what my thoughts are on, let's say, an analogous situation of what it's like watching The Karate Kid. Now, The Karate Kid admittedly was not an amazing film, growing up, but it was still an iconic film to a degree that people your age and my age will remember watching. It's 1 and 2, 3. I really didn't get too into watching. I think I saw clips of it in the last 5 years, but never really watched 3. But 1 and 2, I remember growing up watching, and I saw it many times. And I was interested to see where they would go with this, because the characters in the reboot, to me, it was going to be interesting to see how they did this. And I guess there's a couple metaphors that were bouncing around in my head when I was explaining to my wife my experience in watching Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
The first one was, imagine somebody says, "Oh, I've got pizza. I've got pizza for you." I like pizza, and I like the ingredients in pizza. It's great. And then somebody gives you a slice of pizza, and you're like, "This is really good. I'm really enjoying this. Can I have another slice?" And then somebody gives you the bread and the sauce cooked, and then they sprinkle the cheese uncooked on the top, and you're like, "Well, that's not very good." Well, if you want another piece, you have to get through this one. Okay, fine, I'll get through this one. Then the next piece is good for the first few bites, and then halfway through, somebody's put jam under the pizza, under the cheese, and you're like, "This is gross." All of a sudden, this is terrible.
Doesn't work.
And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to finish this." And then I see I still have a pie left, and all the pieces there look like pizza, but I know that there might be some hidden surprises there that are going to make me not want to finish the meal. And that's kind of how I was going. This was the process of me watching Cobra Kai. It was another simpler analogy. It's like sex, and you start having sex and it's good, but somebody gives you a nut punch every like 20 to 30 seconds, and you think you go, like, let's say periods of, like, let's say 3 minutes of loving with no nut punch, but then all of a sudden you get 2 or 3 nut punches in a row, and you're questioning whether you should continue watching this show, because at times it's painful, but there's other times where it's quite gratifying.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on my metaphor for Cobra Kai?
I think it's excellent. I can relate to that very much so. I definitely received my fair share of nut punches in this. It's what was been fascinating is the fact that we've done these 80s reviews, because it provides some context to the situation.
Yeah.
And one of the themes that I found throughout all of the TV programs that we watched is there's this innocence to the 80s. There's this protected innocence, and there's lack of self-awareness, lack of reality. There's a sweetness, a softness to it. It's not exposed to all the hardships of the reality of life in some cases. There's just something very soothing about it. And you know what? It's you kind of what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So in many ways, this is either so cleverly done that it's kind of produced in an 80s way, or it's so bad they just have not learned a thing in 30 years. But it's very much the same. It's very much the same methodology. It's totally unrealistic, over the top, stupid in parts, embarrassing. And cringeable. And yet I can't stop watching it. It's something that I'm compelled to. And there are certain parts within it that are quite the opposite of the nut punches, where it actually feels really sweet and nice. And there's something quite soothing about watching it too. I had to make the point about the cross trainer thing, because this isn't something I'm making my other half watch that's in the evening. That's just something, oh, right, I've got to settle down for Cobra Kai. I'm very much doing it as something to pass time for 30 minutes, 40 minutes on a cross trainer. So it allows me to watch maybe something like this, maybe a little bit more than I would in my spare time. So I think that's worth noting. But I would agree largely with what you said. And I wonder if you kind of felt the same way that I did in describing the kind of 80s shows, and that it hasn't really moved on too much.
I 100% agree with that. And I was watching it under a similar context while I was either doing dishes or while I was playing. So I play, one of my sort of decompression things is I play on the PS4 PGA 2021. Like, I play golf. And it's actually a good game because you don't have to have the volume on to really get the full enjoyment out of it. And I can put like a podcast or something on in the background and just let it ride. And this was one of those I put on. And even while I was letting it ride in the background, I was like, oh, I might want to just turn this off. No, I'm going to continue with it.
Yeah.
And there was... When I started watching it, I was torn as to whether they were trying to capture the innocent of the 80s, and it was a homage. Is that the word, homage to? It was a tribute to the Karate Kid. And then there was times where some of the jokes and content weren't a throwback style, so it was sort of fighting with itself back and forth. And there was one scene that it caused me to stop playing the game and watch, and I had to start Googling. I'm going to share with you the scene that just really threw me. And I don't know if you'll know why it threw me. Okay, I think you might, but I'm going to pop it on.
Put it on first, and let's have a look.
So let me share my screen here. So I'm going to play just a few, like about 20, 30 seconds. And this scene caused me to stop what I was doing. Put the controller down and watch and think and Google.
No sound, Shawn.
Oh, balls. The sound's the best bit. Hold on. All right. Might edit that one later. Let's try to reshare. Share screen. Share audio. It's a polished show we run here, my friend.
We've got to include some shit show to this, haven't we?
Whoa, how did we get you off of there? We need to get you on there. It's actually was a little bit better for a second. All right. Let's go. This scene, that series, to me, was just, there was a lot of emotion, positive and negative. And I went from being really like, this is fucking dumb, to that's a really brilliant thing. And that was pretty much, it got me sucked right in, because I said, this is a knockoff, a direct knockoff of every Rocky film I've ever seen. Even to the point where there was actually videos on YouTube of people taking the music from Rocky Driving and applying it to that scene. So if I were to Google, I bet I could even find the Rocky Driving scene.
Oh, that's Rocky 3, isn't it? With
he does it in Rocky 4 as well.
Does he? Right.
So let's find a Rocky driving scene now that we've just seen that. Okay. The picture looks just like the scene, like the camera work as well. So I'm going to play this. Let me get this set up here. So you for everybody who's just watched, we've just seen the Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai driving scene. I'm going to play the other scene now. Should have started it from here.
Yeah.
When I'm
In Spanish too.
baby, better get that street. I think it's unbelievable how you give into the hands of fate. Something's all worth fighting for.
I'm going to stop it there.
Some feelings never die.
That is the same, like it's almost as if, I don't know, it's identical. The way the camera was picked, the type of music, the way he's reflecting on previous episodes or previous films. And I saw that and I said, that is a direct, almost copyright of what they were doing in Rocky. And then as I'm watching it, I'm noticing I'm really enjoying this scene, even though it's a blatant knockoff of every 80s driving scene where somebody's thinking about shit that they were unhappy about and trying to deal with it. And I thought, no, I'm going to change my view on this. This was actually, it wasn't just over a 10-minute period. I watched that first episode a few times. And as I was reflecting on it, I thought, no, you know what? That's a really cool tribute to 80s TV, to 80s film, to 80s music, to the editing, the styling, the structure. I'm bought back in. So I came back to the show, and again, I was left with huge disappointment. And I think to be able to break it down, we need to start looking and talking about the characters, because I think the characters are where we really need to drive it. So I'm curious, which character would you like to start with if we were to break down the characters?
Well, let's start with Johnny. I think this is where he is the main focal point, I think, of this this whole series. There's a lot of characters, but I think you could argue that Cobra Kai being the name of it and him bringing it back to life is probably where it all starts.
So Johnny, to me, is like the strength of this show by and far. His character has the potential to make this show a very, very good show. Not a kitschy good show. In my view, Johnny's character, his acting, is not supported by the dialogue, but his acting and just his presence is incredible in the show.
I warm to him. And I think one of the things that I would disagree with your earlier point on the montage bit is that, you know, what's different is that that's Johnny, the bad guy from Karate Kid. Yeah. So you're watching the bad guy and you see his side of it, where this guy, Daniel LaRusso, comes in, who's the protagonist. He's the hero in this. Well, actually, he came in and took his girl ultimately, and then his sensei beat him up. So they were very clever at turning it on its head. That, you know, they've revamped it, but actually, it's not that Daniel LaRusso is a bad guy essentially, but they've really put the bad guy from the first Karate Kid now into the guy that you kind of back in. But yeah, I'd support you with what he said. I don't think he's a tremendous actor, but I think he's one of the better ones, and I warm to his character. Like, I think it's that underdog side, and he does have a good heart. He's had it a little rough. It's exaggerated how rough he's had it. It's over the top of how rough he's had it, and his current living conditions, etc. But I can't buy into this for, you know, when he was at high school, like 16, 17, and he still, as a grown man, hasn't got over that. I can't buy into that. But I think you're right. I think he's the linchpin really of this series.
I think he's actually a pretty decent actor in this. I think any shortfall, you know, as far as in how his character is represented, I think it's 100% down to the dialogue and also the scripting and how they wrote the story. And there was things that would bother me about it because I love the idea of seeing Johnny. And this is where I feel like they had this opportunity to make this absolutely incredible show, and they just were really lazy about it. And they have Johnny, who's this character who's conflicted, who's remembering his time at Cobra Kai, and he's going through some tough times. Now, he's a handyman in LA, and they make decent money. That was the first thing that okay, I can get by that. He hates his job, whatever. He's an alcoholic, fine. But it's not too bad for him. Life isn't all that bad for him, really. So I had some trouble buying into how bad his life was. Maybe he's not happy, fine. But the thing that stood out to me, same as you, was, man, that lost fight really fucked him up for a long time. Like, it's like 25 years later, and he's seeing Danny LaRusso billboards up, because Danny LaRusso, if you haven't watched it, owns a very successful car dealership. And every time you pan to him looking at a picture or a commercial from Danny LaRusso, he just like, oh, like it's man, you lost one fight and you didn't lose that bad. And there was an argument, and he makes it in the show that Danny LaRusso had to cheat to win the fight. And it's like, okay, I'm struggling with this whole thing of him being this fucked up over this one fight.
It's just unbelievable. It's not. I don't think you can buy into it. And I would also say it was not a fight. What they do is, again, as a UFC fan, someone that out of a hobby watches fighting, for fun. I love that. Well, it's laughable that because it all centers around karate, and they're making out karate to be this thing that really has this massive impact. And karate in the MMA community is a joke. There are certain skills, strength and conditioning and things, techniques that you can utilize in an MMA world. But they've had these situations. They've had tournaments where they put MMA guys against karate, and it's not even a conversation. So they've had. It wasn't that Danny LaRusso beat him up and took his will from him. He caught him with a kick, which scored, and he won a tournament. It's like, he wouldn't be the end of you. It's not like he's So that's the 80s, though, right? That's like you could, if we're going to pick holes in it, then you could probably do that for almost every single series, and we've done a pretty good job at that so far. But it's like they haven't stepped on from it, and they're still holding on to some of those truisms back in the 80s, which are now we know that not to be true. We know that not to be the case when it comes to martial arts, and some of the scenes and the fighting stuff, taking on a realism angle, are laughable. They are.
I can live with that, though. I can, because I mentioned this off camera to give you. I watched the first 5, and then I just jumped to the last one because it was so much work. It was so much of it. It was such an emotionally tolling show to watch, as far as liking it and hating it. I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to go to the end. And I don't have high expectations for the actual plot being that complex. So when I went to the last show, I really didn't have a hard time getting caught up to where they were at. Yeah. But I don't think they did actually. My first thought was, that fight really fucked him up. But they did a really good job, or they could have done a really good job of making you think, we're going down this shit road of Danny LaRusso is really living rent free in his head. To they referenced his old instructor, his old sensei, as somebody who probably really fucked him up. And I thought that actually has a lot of buy-in, and that whole idea now brings me back into the scope of why he's fucked up, because that was a central person in his life who was kind of deranged, if you watch The Karate Kid. And that can really fuck a guy up in his older age. So I went kind of full circle on that, thinking, nope, I have full buy-in to him being fucked up because of his sensei.
You did say Daniel LaRusso, and I think you meant Johnny in that case, because, Daniel LaRusso's sensei, Mr. Miyagi, I don't think messed him up. Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm talking about, Johnny. So Johnny's sensei was a deranged person. Mr. Miyagi, I mean, of course he wasn't.
That's what I was thinking.
He was the whole strength of The Karate Kid. That film never happens without Pat Morita.
Absolutely.
But to me, it was Danny LaRusso brings up him having a really fucked up sensei, and that's why Cobra Kai. That's why Johnny's the way he is.
It came from. Yeah.
And I then, which I thought was like, oh, they're actually being really clever about this. They have me thinking that Danny LaRusso is living rent free in his head, when actually it's the sensei of Cobra Kai that's really put him off on this weird path of alcoholism. And because at the end of the Karate Kid movie, where, you know, the first one, he's strangling his student because he lost a fight on a kick. And this guy had dominated karate in the Valley for the last 5 years before that point as his prize pupil. You know, until Mr. Miyagi kicked the shit out of the instructor for strangling him. So I thought, okay, we've resolved this issue. And actually, I think we've resolved it in a way that I'm quite satisfied at that stage.
Okay.
So then the next thing happens that I have issue with is there's certain things in the way they wrote Johnny's character that were really annoying. And it was exactly what you said about karate, because karate is kind of a joke, really. You know, even in the film, in the show, outside of this whole world, you know, the modern characters outside of the spectrum of Johnny and Danny LaRusso don't really look at karate as that much of a serious thing. I think there's points where they even take the piss out of them for being these big karate guys back in the day when karate was the thing in the Valley. And there was the scene where Johnny is first fighting, showing he still has his karate chops, so to speak, when they threw his neighbor kid onto the Trans Am. Awesome car. And he then says, I forget what he said, but he made this comment like it's karate, like he was really proud of it. And I would have liked to have seen them take sort of he was nonchalant, yeah, it's karate. But they didn't do that. He was very proud and like, this is, and that spawned into an area of the film that I really struggled with, was him advertising his karate school like some, you know, man in a white van, creepy guy, Uncle Rico, sneaking up on people with his flyers to try to get him to come to his karate school. It was weird. And it was something that I thought I didn't buy into his character because he seemed smarter than that.
Yeah.
Even to the point they made him so stupid and so not with it that when he was advertising his website, he said www period Cobra Kai period line. Like he actually gave his web address like he was my 80-year-old grandmother. And it was those sort of lines that really just sort of was like, what are we doing here?
I agree. I think they're comedy pieces. They're trying to be lighthearted and have fun at the old guy who's middle-aged. But yeah, it underplayed his intelligence because he's more nuanced than that. Or I would have liked to have thought anyway. So yeah, that bit's a little bit disappointing. The whole culture of karate and how it takes over the high school, and again, season 2, it kind of goes on to a different level, and they form this this deep disconnect in the high school that now suddenly a lot of these kids are doing it, and you're on one team or the other. And there is the bad Cobra Kai versus the Miyagi-Do, and where that takes them. And it's I don't know. I just find it very difficult to buy into the whole thing. What was also, from someone that's, again, I'm a fight fan. I'm not massive. I'm not like great at it myself, but I enjoy it. Watching the kids start training, like when he's punching the bag, like, you know, he's never punched anything in his life. Like and then suddenly, you know, tomorrow he's getting the hang of it, and next week he's an expert. It's cringeable at how supposedly expert he got, how quickly. And even you could say what you want about karate, as far as a skill and an art form and strength and conditioning and a way of staying fit, it's phenomenal. And you can benefit so much from just doing that alone. You know, I'm just talking from the hand-to-hand combat point of view. You know, as far as realism goes, you'll be better off doing that than nothing. But if you were to go up against anyone that really knew anything about basic kickboxing, then you're going to be, or grappling, you're in a huge amount of trouble. But yeah, how they deemed the experts was just really tough for me to watch. And you saw the tournament at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
And there is one guy that's out of that's in the Valley, that you don't see in any other episode, that's doing capoeira kind of kicks. So he's doing these very flamboyant over. This guy is an athlete, like he's doing backflips and spinning kicks, but you would not do that in a fight. Like I've seen some outrageous people fight before, but it was just comical of what he was like portraying, like trying to, like, I don't know. It's just, do you know what I remember, mate, is your wife, Nick, said something, and I think it might have been about the Go Compare adverts, or it was something along those lines with the Go Compare adverts, where you've got this joke character selling you something, and it's so over the top, and yay, we
Yeah.
want to sell you something. And Nick said this comment like it's actually insulting that they put that on TV, that they think that we're going to buy from this like jerk. And that's actually, I thought of your wife when it came up, because it's insulting to think that they think they can convince us that this is doable, like this is achievable. Like you can't have any realism to think that would, that any of that would actually happen, and that they're capable of those type of things. But under the heart of all of it, it kept happening into the 80s. It probably tugged on my heartstrings from watching the first Karate Kid as well, and knowing the characters. It's very different layered. Like I don't think there's any chance I could have watched it without, imagine if this had been a series without actually following on. There was no Karate Kid films. Like it wouldn't stand a chance. Everything is tied in the fact of that film, and they draw back and you see little clips of how young they are, and you're like, oh my God, look how young he is. And you've got to remember that scene, and you're brought back to it. So it's the opposite of the kick in the balls. It's that like it throughout, it just kind of there's enough in it where it keeps you. And then you buy into a bit of the characters, and curiosity takes over. You want to see where it goes, where it ends up. I can't still believe in it. It's still cringeable. Some of the acting is horrendous, but you know what? I try to take this on another level. There's someone that I think I know who the best or I've got opinion who the best actor is. Have you?
The best actor. So we're assuming it's not Johnny. So there was one person who stood out as, to me, the most interesting character. I was going to actually raise a character that I thought stood out to me.
Oh, go ahead, mate. Yeah.
Daniel LaRusso's wife, for me, she came across really well in it. And her character was really plausible. And she was like that person watching this bonkers sort of karate thing unfold like I would. Like, what the fuck is your problem? This is, karate in the 80s, man. You're a successful car dealership and you're dicking about with this stuff.
Mate, she's my answer. She's the best actor in the series.
Oh, so we are on the same page.
Yeah, she's the best actor. Like, so she is funny, she's lighthearted, and she has those serious moments. And she's also, like really she's attractive. Kind of just and she's attractive. Yeah, and she's having a bit of fun as well. She's a bit like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and like. She's got a great range.
Very likable character.
And you can buy into her straight away. And she is like, I think, head and shoulders above everyone, actually throughout it. So it's interesting you said that, because she's a real like key character for me.
So I wanted to go back to one thing from that you mentioned, which was the whole fighting realism thing. And this is where I'm willing to give it some latitude. So this is where I'm comfortable with it, because when I watch, let's say, Jason Statham in The Transporter, it's obviously ridiculous. And you or even if I see on my Facebook feed videos of like some stupid 80s film with like or Spider-Man or something where there's this one kid taking on the bullies, it's shit, but you stick with it and you watch it, and you do get some sense of gratification for seeing people that are over the top in a very unrealistic way picking on somebody getting their asses kicked. Even so I'm happy to give it concessions to somebody who's not educated. I'm aware that karate is not like, if I want to learn to fight, I'm not going to go to a karate school. But I'm willing to give it concessions there where I'm not willing to give it concessions on. For me, I think I'm being a bit harsh with some of the character development, but I just see so much potential in how you can take this Johnny character who is a little bit racist, very sexist, to the point where it's distracting. Like when there was a girl who came when he was struggling for business, who wanted to learn karate. And he said, women, this is why women don't fight in the military. And I just thought that was such a gaslighting, stupid, ignorant, idiotic thing to say. The second somebody walks in and wants to throw money at you and you have the bank foreclosing on, potentially on your business. And it was like, okay, so I see though here, there's a whole thing where he can evolve as a character with the help of these students who are trying to show him the way things were back in Hill Valley and Cobra Kai were not the way. And again, it's not like high level stuff, but I saw a lot of potential in that storyline. And the dialogue for me let it down with how they made him sexist. They could have made him sexist and have reservations about taking her on without saying women have hollow bones. This place is a dojo. Yeah. It's like, oh, fuck off. It's,
it was too
let me
far.
like you, Johnny. Let me like you.
Yeah.
be a grown up, not a child.
Yeah, well said, mate. I think again they're putting across this guy stuck in the 80s, and you could even say 90s and noughties even. But it was just unbelievable the level that he was at. Like that you would say those type of things, especially when he's like on his way out, like losing his business, and yet you wouldn't take one. You would take anyone. Shut up. You would don't give me that. And like the hollow bones thing is just like. There's some stuff in there that just goes a bit far. There's some stuff that he said, like his main student gets him into social media and gets him on dating and also gets him on Facebook and stuff. And he says stuff like, "Oh, on the Facebook," and then they like drop little references and like that, which are actually quite funny and a little bit silly. And your parents could kind of say that type of thing. Gets a little mixed up, but I think they take it a little bit too far. It's a bit. It's a stretch. It goes to the unbelievable side of it, which I think is where the bad writing comes in, because you're just losing me there. There's enough in this to get me going, but you keep knocking my balls. Stop hitting my balls, because there's enough in this that's good. Like, I think you can do this without hitting my balls. So can you please try? But I want to just reference what you said, having now watched the both seasons, Shawn, in that his students do help him grow, and you can see that. You can see the transition. So from those of you watching thinking you would give it a go, it's there. You still have that feeling towards him, and I have that at the end. I like him more now than I did even at the start, and you can see his character kind of growing and developing with the help of his students.
Yeah, which you could see that in the last episode where he's taking an evolution on from Cobra Kai. So this is spoiler alert to anybody who really cares, about ruining the cinematic masterpiece that is Cobra Kai. But in the end, when I jumped to the end, and I got to the point where I saw him trying to win his son over, and you could see his son was at a point where he was looking for someone to reach out to him again, and he was kind of getting tired of being an asshole, like his actual son, who I thought he was okay. He actually, I thought he was a good cast for what he was. His look and his acting chops were pretty good for that role. That I'm a bit of a bad boy, but I'm with what was it, Miyagi? What do they call it?
Miyagi-Do.
And I thought, okay, again, not amazing actors, but I can live with this whole back and forth. And I thought it created an interesting dynamic when his star pupil was going up against his son, and he was trying to engage his son. And I liked the dialogue with Danny LaRusso, who I want to get onto in a second, about his beef with his father. And I like how he was trying to evolve Cobra Kai from what it was to show no mercy. And even like some of the stuff he was teaching him, what I would have liked to have seen is them interject that actually Cobra Kai had some good lessons to be taught, even if it's karate. Like, I found myself as a noob, not a fight aficionado, somebody who likes to watch boxing. When, the whole offense, what's a good defense offense? Now, I know that's not realistic, but you can plausibly see, okay, well, when you're fighting a bunch of high school kids who don't know shit and they don't expect you to show up with some punching chops, then yeah, maybe there's some benefit to being the first one to strike and strike again before they come back. Whatever. I'm not going to get in that discussion, but this is what my mind is taking me down the route. And I'm thinking, you know what? We can find a Johnny who's coming up out of the ashes and finding the value that he learned in Cobra Kai and turning it into something that's fucking good, but keeping that nasty edge, but in a responsible way. And that was where I was hoping this was going to go. And that I don't know. I'm hoping it goes that direction, but there was just things in it that were just like, I questioned, whether they were going that direction. And then what threw me off at the end was at the very end, the last scene, you see the original sensei. What's his name again?
Is it John Kreese? It's Kreese, I think.
So
it might be John Kreese.
The original sensei from Cobra Kai comes back into the shadows in the very sort of cinematic cigar in his mouth with the backlighting, comes into the light. And I thought, you know what, if he lets, I just was like, part of me was hoping, and this is where I saw the show going, and this is where I was questioning whether I commit to season 2. I see a world where Johnny ends up going to Miyagi-Do, and Daniel and Johnny just finally end the beef to beat Cobra Kai. That's where I'm wondering if it's going to go. But I just thought, Man, I hope this story is either going to get really good with Johnny and this guy, because I wanted to see Johnny stand up to this guy and tell him to fuck off, or invite him in, but then have a bit of backbone and tell him to just piss off with all this old school stuff. So that may be why I invest in the next season. Okay.
Well, I'm not going to say anything about the next season. I'll let you go through that. I feel like I feel like it's, you're not going to have too many surprises. There are some actually, but you're not going to get too many. One thing that really bugged me throughout was the lack of respect it was for the training side of things. So, and let me just kind of be very, very specific about this.
I have an example that I think you're going to raise.
This is fucking serious as well. They have numerous amounts of training where they're just punching the shit out of each other. You don't do that. Like, they've got no equipment on, they've got no protective gear on, and they're smashing and kicking, roundhouse kicking each other to the face. You got like brain damage off the back of that. That's not stuff to fuck around with. Like, you got to have headgear on, like you got to have gloves, foot gear, shin gear as well, guards on, and you got to be careful with that and how you're sparring. But they're making out, and they have these certain like little challenges in their training where, for their own unit, Cobra Kai is training and they're beating the crap out of each other. You're like, this is ridiculous. It's kind of making out like almost glorifying the fact that you kind of spin and kick your mate in the face and carry on, and then your mates with them. Like, you don't do that. Like, you go to any training ground, you don't do it that way. It's only when you've got build up to a fight that you go into sparring and it gets quite heavy. But you got to be really selective and careful with the head damage and head trauma. So it was just another side of it that I just thought was, not only is it unrealistic, but even the way that you're training is like it's kind of ridiculous, like what you're doing there. But then again, I think that was kind of sprinkled throughout the season. There was like countless number of those. I was going to say, I want to hear what your thoughts are on Danny LaRusso, but you maybe want to just add something there, mate.
Just the last bit. That was for me as somebody who doesn't fight. I agree with you when it came to two scenes. One of which when he was training, which I was okay with him, whether it's a stretch or not, with him using the baseball fast pitch machine to train defense. You would never do it, but fine, unorthodox. He's clearly not licensed to do what he's doing anyway. I'll give that to you.
Yeah.
But then, like when later in the scene, he's taken down by his student, and then whilst his student, he's down. He then hits the button and nails his student with a fastball baseball to the side of his head. And people have died that way. Yeah. I just remember thinking, what the fuck is your problem, man? That's insane. But then the other scene where the girl shows up for the first time, and on the first day, he's taking his advanced student, forget how he got to advanced, but he beat up 5 people in what looked like a black belt display in the cafeteria. Yeah. They said, all right, you too, let's fight. This is how you learn. You got to take your lumps. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah, she's obviously going to show that she's got some chops and she's going to do the job. But it was just those were things where, they don't pay respect to what training is. It's just like, look, if you get wailed on enough, you're going to learn to block a punch. That was generally the philosophy, I think, that Cobra Kai is.
And that's where it's stuck in the 80s, because you have people that, like in the MMA world, you'll see, like I've been to different gyms and you see how people train. It's fascinating. And some of the places will go that you've just got to be a hard ass. You've got to get your ass handed to you. You've got to get beaten up to get hard. Iron strengthens iron, that type of like philosophy. And then you go to somewhere else where it's like, no, you have to be smart. You have to be cerebral. You have to avoid getting hurt. And then, and how to inflict it in turn. And one of the things that comes through, and I know it like enough about sports, and I've been educated in sports science as well, is specificity is a massive part of training. If you want to get good at anything, it's this repeated beingness. And you could, it's like me, I don't know, like chucking, like you're trying to think of golf, like everything is based around that swing and that attention to that. Like it's highly specific. And even if I were to chuck a ping pong ball on the ground and say, right, let's just practice with this. Actually, there is an argument that will make you worse, because you have to adjust the flight of it so much and your resistance to hitting a ping pong ball. It's not conducive to hitting a golf ball. It's really actually, it could mess your swing up more than it could anything else. Or playing basketball with an air ball, a squidgy air ball that's small, your grip and everything, and a ring that's lower. Like, it could make you a worse basketball player. You need to be really specific. So some of the cringeable stuff in karate they're getting them to do, like, I know it's old school, but like the wax on and wax. No, you just stand in front of someone. You learn how to block a punch, not how to scrub a floor will make you a better blocker. Blocking will help you become a better blocker. So I find that kind of stuff quite hard to get past. And again, and I'm not an expert. I totally understand that, but I just find it really difficult to kind of absorb that. And just really, am I supposed to buy that now?
But I would argue that in the original Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi and his techniques of training, which were very washing the floor oriented.
Oh, mate, it's littered. Yeah.
But I like that, and I have some fantasy buy into that, because that was more methodical than, hey kid, clean the toilet, which is what Johnny did with his student start. It was like, yeah. I kind of like that. I thought that was clever. It's like, this is a real poor man's Mr. Miyagi effort. Can you clean the toilets? And then we'll teach you how to fight. Like, whereas Mr. Miyagi was like, wax on, wax off. And if he didn't do it the specific way, then no. This is how you wax on. This is how you wax off. Now, actually, there's some connection with training in golf with that. So I have buy into that, because in golf, you have to practice repeated motions in different ways. And it's those motions doing one thing or something totally unrelated that you have muscle memory for. So I'm not saying this is right, but I have buy into that whole mythology of Mr. Miyagi's training methods. And I like how they linked that to the shitty job Johnny was doing trying to open this Cobra Kai dojo in such a shitty way. I like that, actually. I thought that was kind of funny for me.
I can buy into the romantic side of it, and the fact it's creative, and there's and I liked it. I like that side of it. Just there's a difference between liking it and believing it. And actually, a group of students that go on and wax the floor versus someone that's actually standing in front of someone blocking, it's just a zero contest. But that was one of the examples that came to mind. But you'll see throughout, there are many, many more examples of some cringeable things that they're doing supposedly to help instruct. But
in this one, yes. I think when we look at Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid, a lot of what he's teaching are some of the things you wish they were referencing in this one, which is that attention to detail and that training. You don't just go out and punch somebody, which is what they teach in Cobra Kai. In Mr. Miyagi's, his methods, it was very methodical, and we're going to work really slow. They even do some of that in, what is it, in Bloodsport or American Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme, where he's got to spend hours kicking a tree before he knows how to kick a person.
Yeah, I think that might be Kickboxer.
We're gonna have to come back to that one at another time.
Oh yeah.
But on to Danny LaRusso, which Danny LaRusso, for me, I've got so many questions, and I just don't know. And part of it is I don't know how they make Danny LaRusso work, because I thought Danny LaRusso was incredibly likable at times. I thought Danny LaRusso was incredibly unlikable at times. And I thought his whole character, the way they wrote his character, was so confused and so difficult to buy into. It just really it was the biggest distraction in the whole show. I think you could have just done with a lot less Danny LaRusso in this series.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. I think there's definitely conflict with his character in that he comes across really well. And I think that's largely associated with anything around Miyagi. So when it's ever about that, it's coming from a great place, and you can see that he is trying to live in integrity with what his great master was teaching. And there's something really sweet about that. And when he's trying to pass that down, but there were just some clumsy, lazy, scripted bits which made him come across as a real tool, when if someone did embody what Miyagi wouldn't have done or said those things, and if you're really someone that's going to embody that, I'm not sure I believe you actually saying and being this side of your character. So yeah, he's not. I don't know. It's you know what came out from this as well, mate. I feel very similar to you, just to kind of summarize with Daniel LaRusso, but it's that cringeable side of society which is so binary, that you have this this view that You've got Miyagi-Do is good and Cobra Kai is evil, and none of which is right. There are things, you know, and actually, if you're having a middle ground and taking the best of both worlds is probably the best way that, you know, to move forward. And I think that kind of coincides with our chat on drugs that we were talking about, and politics, and a number of other things. That there's just something to be said for moderation, and it was just another example where they're kind of portraying society just to have two distinct right and wrong extreme views, and it's just, so that was like a little disappointing, because he was part of that. He had that fixed view that Cobra Kai equals this, you know, it's bad, it's that, and he could not look past that. So yeah, which I think is one of the failings in his character. But yeah, I don't know, I feel I'd say I like him more than dislike him, but I definitely prefer Johnny.
Yeah, where I struggle with Danny LaRusso is, well, I've got one scene that really, I've got it almost ready here. I'm going to share. I've got one scene that really just like put me off his character for a good couple of episodes. And when I watched the last one, I started to come back. So I'm going to share this. You're probably going to go, yeah, I know why you're sharing this one.
Okay. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, okay.
Enough for 2 Auto Kings. Am I right? You sure I can't get you a boba?
No. I'm fine.
All right. I guess you must be full after eating all that dick.
Love the billboard.
Look at that smug look.
But I mean, even technically, mate, that kick wasn't that great, like, as well. And the guy is the other guy, the author guy, is such a prick as well. But he kind of comes down to his level. Like he didn't need to do that. Was it the smugness that got it for you?
You know, I just thought, you fucking loser. Like, what, you kicked the drink out of his hand with some lame ass kick, and I'm supposed to buy.
Now you're the man.
And the way they wrote the show, like the writers were like, yeah, this is pretty badass. So I think when we write the scene and people are going to think Daniel's got a bit of something about him, when actually, no, my thought as a consumer of this is, you fucking loser. You just, you kicked the drink out of his hand and you walked out of there like you weren't an embarrassment to yourself and your business. You know, even that was so contrived, where that scene, for anybody who hasn't seen the film, that scene, he confronts the competitor because there was a dick drawn on his face on a billboard, which was actually by Johnny when he was shit-faced. No problem with that. And then he goes into a marketing meeting looking to redo their advertising anyway. And it turns out the people that they've hired worked on his competitors' adverts. And in it, they were stealing some of the ideas, which wasn't really stealing. It was just they were taking a shot at the competition.
They were modeling, and taking a bit of a dig.
So he decides he's going to go over there, and in this world of Cobra Kai, every business owner works on the shop floor selling cars, and he rocks up, and of course the guy is there with his boba, and he says, "Listen, man, I don't need this right now. Can you not do your advertising and run your business because I'm having personal problems?" And of course, this guy has every right to be shitty with him, especially since he referenced, I was pretty good at karate. So it's not a small thing. Yeah, of course he's going to take the piss out of you. And then to turn around and to kick the drink out of his hand, it's just like, man, when Johnny took out those kids at the convenience store, I didn't go, what a joke. I thought, all right, yeah, they deserve that. They're assholes. But when he did that, I thought, nah, actually, yeah, he's an asshole. But, you're in the grown-up world. Why do you feel good about doing that? And that just put me off his character for a few episodes.
Okay, yeah, I think we feel fairly similar, not identically aligned. Like, I just don't think it was that much of a game changer either. Like, he took the pit, like saying you're sucking cock, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm going to turn around and kick a drink." It's like nothing. And then what? Like nothing really happened as a result. It wasn't like they try and made out like it brought the house down. But actually, if something a bit more severe had happened, he maybe kicked a drink out of his hand, then squared up to him and got him to like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give it a break. And maybe got him to break down in some way that he felt that he won this battle that was ongoing. because they did a good job of making the other guy out to be a bit of an idiot. But I think the kind of arrogant kick and then the walk away, feeling like that will kind of show them. I don't know. I can buy into it personally. It was quite aggressive for Miyagi-Do philosophy. You never strike first, and actually he was the one that he had an insult and he struck first. It was kind
unprompted.
Of like, not really going in line with what his master would have done.
So where his character, for me, I have difficulty with, and this part of this is done to me jumping to the end. He ends up taking on a student, which is Johnny's troubled son. And he goes from that behavior to, you see scenes of him coming back to training him to forget all the negativity, be one with yourself, and everything will be fine. Just to get him to get his shit together in a fight and not fight out of anger, keep your head together, that sort of thing. And it was such wise, sage, Mr. Miyagi-esque wisdom. And I was trying to figure out how he went from kicking a boba out of his competitor's hand in the middle of the shop floor to having this sage wisdom. And I don't know if there was a journey. I got the impression I would have been okay with it if he was going down the route of being more and more of an asshole, forgetting who he was back in the day, and these roles are reversing. Johnny becoming the side of right, and they both struggling with their demons. And then I thought if they would, the way you could have done this, and this is me, if I would have loved this, if he somehow gets mixed up with Johnny's son and sees the negativity in Johnny's son, and then starts to really questioning his methods and his morals and who he's become. And that's when they join forces, maybe to discover that positive path again going forward. Whereas he just decides, oh yeah, that was me before. I'm going to go back to the whole Miyagi thing without any sort of, just boom, I'm going to turn a switch and I'm going to stop being an asshole and teach this kid all of this advanced wisdom that I've just forgotten about a week ago. That's where I lost that. I have a feeling that didn't happen in the 3 episodes or 4 episodes I missed.
Yeah, again, well, I won't pass comment on that. I think your point about the various different routes they could have taken this is fascinating, because I had a feeling it might go down that path that you explained, where Johnny is the kind of like Breaking Bad, where you've seen the whole series where you're coming in from the good guy, and then there's this stupid kind of assistant versus the good becomes evil and the evil becomes good switch, and you see something maybe similar happening here. And I think they've shown little snippets of the possibilities of that happening, but I'm talking about season 1 now, but I don't think they've really kind of taken that on. And without too much of a spoiler, that hasn't really gone on in season 2 too much. There's been other layers to it, not really based around those characters. How you feel about Johnny and Danny, I think you may largely feel somewhat the same in the end of season 2. That hasn't changed dramatically. There are just other things woven into it. One thing about good and evil that I found quite difficult, though, was Robbie, which is Danny's Johnny's son, who's basically a bit of a down and out kid. His mum is an alcoholic, drug abuser, and is leaving him to it. He's a bad egg, right? And in the first few episodes, you see him doing some very unsavory things, and then suddenly being taken from wanting to screw his dad over by being trained by LaRusso. He becomes a good guy within like that. So you got this little shit that's doing really really bad things, and his tensions are not great, to suddenly just switch of character. I'm now a good guy because of karate. It was just a bit again, I just felt like it was a bit of a stretch.
It was a huge leap in a very short span of time with which he became a good guy, and how little work Danny LaRusso had to do to get him on side.
That's it.
And how good he got at karate too. I mean, some of this I saw in the last episode, the kick that the second to last point he scored, or the last point he scored before he lost, where I think he did a hand plant with his good hand and some sort of 2-legged kick.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to give latitude with that. But it's almost as if they tried to squeeze what would have been really good in 2 seasons into 1 season, because they could have developed that over time. and they didn't. They forced that from episode 5 to the final episode in that very short span of time, and that was very difficult to buy into.
It'd be interesting to see what you think of season 2 if you go down that path. I have an inkling that you may give it a little bit of attention, but that's obviously down to you. But it does go in a couple of different routes, and a very interesting ending. Anyway, I have to stand by. I could actually what ended up as the last kind of bit of the few scenes. You could see something happening like that, but up until that point, I have to say I would not have called what was going to happen at all. And then it leads very nicely into season 3 of how now this is going to be interesting as where are they going to take this? So that in itself, I might have provided enough intrigue for you to kind of go forward and explore that, but. Yeah, there was a point I was going to make about the kids as well in the karate, and I can't remember what it was now.
Well, the other thing I noticed, having jumped ahead, and I think there's interesting perspective having skipped, let's say,
I've got it. You carry on.
Last 4 to 5 was how. So was the kid with the mohawk? Was he the kid with the lip thing?
It's another ridiculous thing where
that's the same person.
He's getting bullied. 2 goes to Cobra Kai, and now he's like within a couple of training sessions is one of the hardest kids in school. It's like, it just doesn't work like that. He still has a haired lip, so people would still, knowing kids are kids, they would still rip him for that. But which was destroying him, and now he's a hard case after Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I was amazed at the transformation, thinking, man, Johnny is good at his job. I mean, he should be a cult leader. Johnny should be running his own cult. He should buy a complex. He needs to buy a compound, and he needs to make sure everyone gives him all of his possessions, give him a stipend of money, get jobs somewhere else, and then train Cobra Kai. And it only took him a couple of weeks to turn this kid into like a serial killer.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I'd remembered, which I thought was really funny, actually. I did laugh. I did chuckle, I got to say. In the last episode where Robbie, who Danny LaRusso is training now and overseeing, gets hurt in the arm, like gets kicked and damages his shoulder, and he's in a lot of pain. He's only one-armed. So he's not, I think it was dislocated. So he's not in a fit condition to actually take on the finalist against Cobra Kai student. But Danny LaRusso, he was like, I can't fight. And then Danny LaRusso just goes, we'll see about that.
Oh, that was actually, I like that scene.
And I was like, don't you dare. I was like, look, you've taken a piss out of me throughout this whole thing to believe X, Y, and Z, like hair lip turns into the hardest man in the world, this karate training, all these different stuff. And now you're going to suddenly be Miyagi and heal someone with this. And when he just turned around and said, medic. I thought that, I was like,
I like that scene. Yeah.
Well played. That was great. Like,
that was the thing.
Needs a bit more of that. If they just did a little bit more of that, it would have, I think, really added to it.
I think if Danny LaRusso for me was the douchey rich guy, we're going to serve you really good sushimi to my daughter's boyfriend and talk about its provenance, and I'm going to be giving everybody a bonsai tree who shows up and being real cheesy and making pancakes every morning with that occasional, look, I'm too good for this shit with Cobra Kai. And then he slowly got into that whole world because of what he's seeing going on with his kids or whatever. That would have been for me a better path for Daniel LaRusso, because I thought they could have made him flawed in different ways that didn't compromise his character to link him to Miyagi-Do. And that for me would have been the better route, because when he was walking away from Johnny saying, look, this is stupid. I was like, yeah, that's I like that. I like that he was trying to get away from that shit.
Yeah.
There's just so much with that whole dynamic. And I thought it was a good dynamic in a way, that the way they brought him in and the way that he struggled with the dick being drawn on the face. That was when I started to really like his wife's character, when she was kind of seeing the funny side of having a dick drawn on your billboard. And that was where I look at it and I'm like, there's such a good show in here. There is genuinely a really good show in here. And I can look past all the 80s. I can actually think the 80s stuff works for it. Like the way the karate, like the expedited training and the over-the-top karate tournaments. That was very Karate Kid. That's a tribute to the film. And then within that, you could have just created this. You could have made Johnny's character really cool. And I think that's where I'm really let down, is every time I saw Johnny, every episode, I'm like, yeah, I like you as a character. And then I'm like, man, I feel like I've just been so let down and sold out. I've just wasted my time buying into you. And then something happens to get me bought back in thinking, okay, yeah, he was a real douchebag, but now he's starting to turn around. And even then, like to the point where when his sensei showed up in that last episode, I'm like, you're going to fold. You're going to see this guy who's abused you and caused you to go into this sort of despot, sort of alcoholic stupor. You get your shit together, he's going to show up and you're going to crumble like just, nothing. And I am curious to see because of that, what happens in the next episode.
You're watching season 2, aren't you?
I will watch. We need to do a follow-up when this is all said and done, I think.
Okay. Well, yeah, and then in the new year, in December, in January, they've got season 3. So
I say we pick this up again after season 2 and 3, because that'll give me more reason to watch it. I won't watch it if we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd love to speak to you about it. I think there's a lot to go into in season 2 alone, because there's new characters that come in. So it's taken just a different angle. You could probably have a decent guess right now after watching season 1 where you think it may go, but I think there's enough in it for you. From what you've explained, there's probably more than enough. And I think just from alone, I like Johnny more at the end of 2 than I did at the start of 1. So that in itself might be worthwhile. Yeah, but there's more of the same. There's more cringy moments. Yeah. There's more of the nut bangs, but there are a few of those little nuggets that come in that are just like enough to kind of keep me watching.
Yeah, and I think he's actually. I walked away from that thinking that guy's a pretty good actor. I walked away thinking I could see him doing something else, because the way he made I thought what was a really difficult script and really difficult lines manageable.
I think I had a higher perception of him at the end of 2 than I did at 1. I wasn't that convinced at 1, but I want to say one thing about acting as well, just briefly as well, Shawn. Danny LaRusso's cousins that work at you got that scale. You got like Danny LaRusso's wife, who's like really good, and his dullard cousins that are just, again, those type of characters that you saw back in the other 80s reviews that we did, just on a different level of terribleness. There was tough going.
Oh, we didn't talk about the girls, the rich girls, and how awful they were. Yeah, how terrible they were, and I couldn't tell if that really worked or really didn't. I really liked his daughter's character, I don't penalize this show. Because this show is a tribute to Karate Kid, it gets a lot of latitude for me on sort of canned situations, high school bully type things. And I thought she carried that role well, of being big-hearted in a difficult situation. And there was one scene that really distracted me, that I was disappointed in. And that was when her ex-boyfriend said that said to the school that she went down on me in the theater just to get back at her, because it was such a dick move anyway. Yeah. And she had shown in the scene before, when he was trying to get her to stay, that she'd been trained by Danny LaRusso, her father, and had some fighting credentials, and she was about to square up. And I'm like, yeah, you knock him the fuck out. And then she was saved by the neighbor kid, the boy. And I thought, you know what? That to me, I thought there was such a good opportunity to really, showcase her character and not be so blatantly. It wasn't sexist, but it was very sort of 80s men come and save the day. And I was disappointed in that scene. I would have liked to have seen
it in isolation. You're right, and I felt exactly the same watching it. But having watched the rest of the episodes, she comes through and asserts herself. To me, it over eggs the strength of the female character in a physical environment with men. So again, there's a reason that men don't fight women, and there's a reason that even men and women have weight classes. There are huge advantages to each of those. They do, I think, a very solid job of portraying women as strong characters who do back themselves versus men on multiple occasions. So that to an unrealistic level. So
yeah,
I agree with you watching that, and I could see why you felt like that, having not seen the rest of it. But in fairness, I think that was good because it's set. She was prepared to go, and they cut it. But there are other opportunities that arise that kind of comes through. So
my issue for giving up on, I committed. To be fair, I committed over the course of a week 2.5 hours of my time to this show. So it's not as if I didn't put time in. Never again. I think the way I wanted to see that play out, because I think there was value, because I liked how that fight scene played out. It was very cliche and formulaic, but I liked how it played out. Even ignoring the fact that this whole showdown went on for a good 10 minutes without a single teacher showing up and breaking anything up. But that's okay. I like that it played out. But when it played, I would have preferred to see her do something like throw a punch or trip him over, and then just as he's about to retaliate, he comes jumping in because he's got 4 of them with him. So I would have liked to have seen a little more. However, I haven't seen the rest of it, so there may have been value added in that.
There was value added in that.
I think for all of its failings, I was really excited to talk about it because I've never had more thoughts about a show having watched this show. And I think a lot of it, there's an emotive connection with the original Karate Kid. As much as I think it wasn't that good as an adult, and as much as I liked it as a child, I still got really excited. It was almost like all the things I didn't like about Karate Kid, I wanted this to make up for it. I wanted this to make Karate Kid, wow, I'm off screen. I wanted this to make Karate Kid a better film. It was almost like a good opportunity to sort of justify a lot of the weird shit that went on in that show. So when I watch it, I think that's what I'm looking for, is I'm looking for those feels, those old feels from before, but I'm also looking for some new salvation in that. You know, I'm looking for some evolution from those things that were quite weak in that film, because there is a lot of weak things in the Karate Kid.
I'd be interested to watch it back again, mate.
Yeah.
I agree with your summary that this one had a huge opportunity and potential to be taken in a variety of ways. And I think for those that are interested, I think I'd still check it out. And I think if you watch the trailer is captivating because it does a good enough story to kind of put some of those potential options there, and it asks questions, and you're like, oh, just to see where this goes. This might be a bit cringy, but let's have a look. But yeah, I think overall for fans of the actual film itself, you might get enough nostalgia from it, and there's still something quite warm-hearted and comforting about watching it. But it's definitely not something I would I would watch quite leisurely at my pace. The environment that I'm watching it was perfect just to pass a little bit of time, not something to take too seriously. It's a nice little bubble, and a reminder that actually there is still a place for me for this naive, unrealistic, slightly silly in times kind of TV, and that pulling back the nostalgia to the 80s is. I think you're always going to get me with that. I don't think I'll ever get past that. I think and the 90s the same. I think just growing up, if they can tap into something that we can relate to growing up, you kind of got me. I almost don't have a choice that I'm going to be kind of interested, and I'll kind of like it just for that, where it makes me feel looking back.
Well, a good show in itself. I think good show. That's not a good show. I don't want to say it's a good show, but I think it's a good show for Karate Kid fans if you want to have a conversation about Karate Kid, you want to relive Karate Kid. And it's a great show if you're with a mate or you're locked down, as is the case for some people now. It's to pass the time when you've got nothing going on and you want to relive those feels. And for me, you have to talk about it to enjoy it, to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. For me, if I just watched it and it was just me watching it and getting on with life, I think I would want to vent to somebody who's seen it. And that's added a lot of value, actually. It's been really good to kind of go back down the road. Because if let's say we weren't doing this and I was just on my own and I watched the first episode, I would have probably bailed at the second episode and never come back to it. But I have more value in it having stuck with the episodes that I have and us having talked about it. So good topic. I'm glad I stuck with it.
Good. I'm glad you did too, and I agree with that, Shawn. It's one to be shared, one to be talked about.
So I thought moving forward, we'll come back to this. And I think just looking at segueing here, there was something totally different I wanted to bring up. And it made me think about sort of what we're doing, what people look for when they listen to people talk. And I saw this channel this week that really helped me get through my work week. And it was the weirdest channel. And I think I must have watched 4 or 5 hours whilst I was working. And there were certain elements of it that I miss and I'd love to see recreated. I'm going to share it with you if you don't mind. You don't mind if we change gears here really quick?
No, let's go.
So where is it? Okay. So there is a channel who is playing a game called American Truck Simulator. I think it is ATS. And what they're doing is they drive. So this American Truck Simulator it's like a tractor trailer or lorry driver simulator. And the game essentially is you drive a load from one part of the country to another.
Okay.
And
like
the video
farm simulator, because there's a farm simulator. My nephews are addicted to it. Is it like that?
Yeah, it is like that. And what this guy does, because you're in a lorry, you can decide what's on the radio. And he plays, like I play golf and I watch, let's say,
maybe the
why
same
isn't this
company
pausing?
that made American Truck Simulator.
I think I've crashed. Yeah, my computer's going a bit haywire. Can you hear me okay? Is everything all right?
I can hear you, and I can't hear that, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think because I'm not sharing it, it's not showing up. But there's a TV. Yeah, so what he does is he plays these old radio shows from like the 80s, 90s, 2000s from this guy named Art Bell. And he would do these radio shows, and they're fascinating radio shows because he would do a radio show on aliens or heaven and hell or Area 51. And he's this really good broadcaster, and he would do this national radio show, and it would have that sound of a radio show, that slightly staticky callers would call in and explain their experiences with ghosts or spirits, and they're clearly nuts. But he would interview them in like a very matter-of-fact way, never ridiculed anybody, gave everyone the time of day. And the guy would film these shows, like the video gameplay of him driving, and it was always at night and in snow. And you would see the cab and the wheel, and you would see him veering, and you'd hear this radio show in the background. And it just had this calming, soothing effect. And I always find these channels intriguing. I'm going to share it with you. I'm just curious as to what your take is, if I'm absolutely bonkers, or I'm just going to play this for you.
So this is a game that we're watching now, a simulator.
Yeah, so this guy is just playing a game, driving for like 3 hours on a computer in the snow from one part of the U.S. to another.
Who chooses those
Can you hear that?
who would perform an exorcism, Father?
Well, once upon a time, when in the Catholic Church,
So this is what he would just be driving.
science of exorcism.
And I just want to get Art Bell's voice because he's really good.
Jesuit, and he spoke with this young nun, Margaret Mary,
This guy
and-
talks a lot.
like this. He said, well,
He's still talking.
the church meant, because I still believe that there is a mystical entity called the church. And it is what St. Paul calls.
But you see, he's just
Body
driving
Christ
from one place to
without
another.
spot or
He likes to drive in the snow, and he likes to
Shawn,
drive at
I'd
night.
say it is soothing. It totally is soothing. It's the pace of the wipers. It's that there's not too much visual noise going on. It's very, straightforward.
State of grace.
The pace of it, there's actually something very soothing about it. I agree.
Belief churches has gone up.
Yes, it has. It has. There's an ingathering.
This reminds me of doing long drives at
collecting
night.
together when they find
And the stuff
themselves
you're
believing
listening
the
to,
same
like, it
thing
doesn't have to
against
be
the cause.
like, it doesn't, like, the content isn't anything I'm really that interested in. I mean, I do like having some sort of conspiratorial conversations from time to time, but it's like, it was the nature of, I just want to find one of the later ones, because his radio voice is absolutely incredible. I'm going to find one of the ones that I listened to this week, because that one was just that guy talking the entire time. You didn't hear the actual host at any one point. And I'm glad I haven't listened to that one. Where is it? But it's always the same guy as well. No, I don't think I'm going to find it. But just one I wanted to share. If you ever get a chance, you want to find something that helps sort of get your mind off of everything from aliens to ghosts to heaven and hell. He just gets these crazy people calling in and just listens to their stories on exorcism and all of this stuff. And the way he does it, it's not like there's no judgment. There's like, yeah, I can see how you feel. Yeah, I can totally understand that. Highly recommended. It's called channel is, let me find the channel for you. And I'll put a link in the description. It's called Just All-in-One Resource. And again, it's not all of his videos, but a lot of his videos, he plays that game and listens to this Art Bell radio show. And the thing I loved about it wasn't just the soothingness of the driving and the wipers and the snow and driving at night, which I remember driving long distances at night in America on the highways and having the radio on in the background, the heat in the car and the cold outside. I remember, like, it's the sound of when you hear people on the radio. And you hear that crackling and the way his voice comes across. It's, to me, it's like it's vintage art in a way where just I want to see if I can get a good example of it here that I can share. But to me, it's just incredible.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see the appeal. Within seconds, I felt like that. You could feel there's something very soothing about it. It's like you said, it's about that kind of, it's a combination of all the things, wasn't it? That there wasn't too much to focus on. Like there's too much.
Something.
Turn that down. Sorry.
There's enough that you can focus on just what's going on. There's just a few things moving by. There's a monotony of that. It's in the darkness, just slight movements, and it's just even visually now. There's something fairly relaxing about it. But then when you click on the slow, lethargic discussion, with a great radio voices. Yeah, I can see the appeal on that.
Hey, John, have you heard any
That's the voice
about angelic appearances with reference to the big explosion?
You don't get that anymore. That's slight distortion.
Yeah.
And that guy's got a great radio voice. And it just made me wonder if we ever did something where we had callers, if we could get that distortion and get that that filter on the call and on the line. That for me, yeah, I thought as a bit of a departure from Cobra Kai, I just wanted to share that because it was one of the weirdest things that I came across this week. And I must have watched, I want to say 5 hours whilst I was working of this, and all of it was nonsense. There was one guy one week who he was interviewing who claimed to be an Indian medicine man and claimed to be able to go to the realms of hell and knew how to fly. And he was like this. And then at one point, like the guy, he was letting him sort of speak. He was this old guy, 60-year-old, crazy old guy. And at one point he had a woman call in who was a Native American as well, or so we thought. And she said, "So I'm Navajo, you're Blackfoot or something. Are you a medicine man or a shaman?" And he's like, "Well, I'm mostly Irish, but I do have a very little bit of Indian in me." So he's like, most people would think I'm a white guy, which is an interesting discovery for me. And it was I just was like, man, this is really interesting because this guy thinks he's some medicine man. And you could and the thing I loved about it was the interviewer didn't break stride, didn't change the show, just kept plowing on, like asking him about his experiences as a medicine man and a shaman. I just thought it was brilliant. And it was just one of those things I wanted to share.
You know what, mate? Just to kind of relate to you here, I went to a mindfulness. It was drumming for mindfulness here locally, and I knew it would be like a bit of fun. And I like to, me, I'll always try something once and put myself out there. I've got very few inhibitions to how I look and what people think of me. I'll just try some stuff out. I like mindfulness. I was like drumming. I used to drum as a kid, and I always wanted to take it further, but didn't. Let's just see what it's like. And you're basically in a circle, like tapping the drums, and it's a lot of shamanism and that type of thing. And there's a section where you have mindfulness, and they turn all the lights out and they bang the drum like in these rhythmic patterns, and you're laying there, and it's awesome. You can feel the vibration, and it was a really cool experience. And then we share what went through our mind. And it was like, just kind of like I was thinking about tomorrow, what I was doing, and what I thought of the session. And then I spoke to someone else. I went on a little exploration. The deer came to me. I spoke to the deer, and the deer and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And there were people there, multiple people that were having these visions and these out of body experiences, and they were explaining it. It was like, you know what? It was like it was such a safe space as well. Because if it was your turn and you'd say, thank you, I have nothing else to share, and you pass it on, you didn't have to. It was a very friendly, it's a bit like hippie kind of environment. But, as you know me quite well, you wouldn't have thought that I'm the type of guy that would have gone to those type of things. And I wasn't expecting it, in all transparency. But I went there in the first session, and there was a guy, like middle-aged guy, and I was like, you should not be here. Like, I know you might be thinking the same with me, but I'll go through this thing. I will open myself up to it. But this guy, he was dragged there with his wife, and he did not come up the next week. And it was so obvious he wasn't going to come. It was so out of his comfort zone. Like a man's man, shake his hand. He's got thick hair, like a build or whatever. Yeah. And then talking about your emotions and how you feel and sharing that. It's a very feminine kind of environment, and they embrace that. And I think it's healthy. But this guy was out of his fucking depth. But my point being, kind of going back to your point, just being this little fly on the wall, is like I couldn't get the visions that they were or were not getting. And I'm very different to those type of people, but they had love in their hearts, that we would sing and dance. We'd sing and do these dances together and tap drums and sing, right? But there was something so soothing and so cool about it. And I was like a fly on the wall, very much like what you were, like hearing these people have these discussions, like, this is fucking insane. But I'm entranced, I'm fascinated. And there was something so soothing about it, and the energy from it, which is much like that radio. The energy from it was just, everyone had the opportunity to explore, and we even held hands, and there was something, you go around in circles, tapping drums, moving, singing and holding hands and stuff. And he's like, you know what? Like, I can see why people do this. It feels nice. It's like this interconnection. And we'd finish each session and we'd go up to each other, and we would have this like Indian way of saying thank you, and like something like good be with you. And then they would say good be with you, and you had to make eye contact, and you'd bow, and then you'd move to the next person. So it was like really flowery, hippie kind of stuff, but undeniably felt, not, if you're going to be open with yourself and honest, it just felt great. Like, so I did the course, whatever it was, 8 weeks or so. I really enjoyed it. I've not done any since, and COVID's come in, but yeah, I there's something about being in an environment, especially one that you're not familiar with or you can relate to, and just hearing people have a discussion like we're doing. And who knows, maybe there are people out there listening to us thinking, what the fuck are these two guys on? But they get some form of, I don't know, they get a nice energy off the back of it. Who knows? But I'm with you on that one, mate, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's feeling vulnerable. It sounds like it's something about feeling vulnerable with people and not being judged. That you feel like you're in the safe space. I know that when we were growing up, I went on a religious retreat, and everybody came back from the religious retreat. Everyone thought it was like a cult, because everyone came back wearing these crosses, and they had these inside sort of, experiences, and they were bonded for life because of this. And I went on that, and you go away with people. And I remember you connect with, you're put into these rooms with people, in high school, and you tell these really personal stories about yourself. And what they do is they have your parents write letters about how important you are to them, that they read in front of everybody. And it's just this, connecting emotional experience. And it's just being in a room where, because the environment when you're in high school in that situation was called Encounter. It's a religious thing, Catholic Church, I think it is. And there's something about being in a place and where a safe space where you can represent any thought you wanted to, or share what was on your mind, and know that people were going to be there to try and support you or try to listen. And you don't really get many of those places, because you kind of need to make a declaration that this is a safe space for it to be a safe space. And I think a lot of times people are guarded and, unsure about what they can and can't share, or how supportive they can be physically, even emotionally, hugging, holding hands, that sort of things. People do like that sort of physical connection to know, that, a hug is soothing. And I think that's an environment that very much reminds me of that. And you don't really get that too often. So I think you're just sort of recreating this safe space where you can do things that are somewhat silly. And to them, it's not silly, but they're things that you can only do if you're in a safe space. And I think by doing that, pretty much anything you can say after that is not going to be judged because of what we were just talking about a second ago. So you probably are pretty clear that you can do what you want, need to, say anything you want in the way you want to.
there was this, I don't know if you found the same thing with the camp, but there was this underlying feeling of just wonderful energy, and that I felt like I was the only guy there in the end. I was like the youngest, I think, by a margin. Middle-aged women was the kind of main protocol, and but you know what, it was just so welcoming, and everyone was just so kind-hearted and warm. So that I could connect to 100%.
Yeah,
like everyone was just so lovely, and like they had great auras and energies about them. They were just relaxed and just lovely. And if you said, you know what, I'm really struggling with X, Y, and Z, or could you help? I got a sense that they would do anything for you, and that no matter what you're doing, dancing around, making yourself look like a dick and singing songs, being in that environment in general was just lovely. And I just, it was fun to experience it. I'll probably never do it again, but I think even being in maybe a religious setting, and you can see that, and there's just, being around good people, even if they're talking about and doing things you wouldn't normally do, is just, there's something really nice about it, and I'm drawn to it.
I'd like to do more stuff in the future where we listen to people talk about things that are a bit bonkers. And I think we kind of did that a bit with the Bob Lazar thing. I like, the thing I like about those topics, and even this with Cobra Kai, is we don't have to challenge anybody's views, or we don't have to, I mean, I don't mind challenging people's views, but we can dig into something that we can go in so many different directions on. And people are fascinating at the end of the day. And
absolutely.
And I would say that Art Bell radio show that guy plays when he plays this game, in the cab of his virtual lorry, that people are listening. And that apparently was a very popular show for many years. I guarantee people were tuning in just to be like, what the fuck are these people going to come out with? I really need to hear. Because you put yourself, even when you're in that environment, you're not judging them in your class. When you went to your class, well, you are judging them, but you're not holding it against them. You're not negative. You're not making them feel bad for feeling the way they are. And you start thinking, when I listen to people having these crazy views, I don't think, what a fucking idiot. I always think, how do you get to that conclusion? Or how do you believe you were in a cloud speaking to your son or something? You wonder how you make the leap, and what makes you think that what you're talking about is real. And it's just, I'm fascinated at how people think the way they do, and the conclusions they come to.
My curiosity keeps me engaged in a lot of that type of stuff, Shawn. Yeah, that kept me going just to see where it goes. That I know that really I don't belong here. No, they're welcoming, but I know this isn't for me. But yet, I just want to see where this goes. I want to see what happens as a result. I'm fascinated to hear more conversations and see what other people talk about. And I do wish that more people would be more willing to do that, to get out of their areas of comfort, and to maybe expose themselves to circles where there's less judgment, or maybe they've opened up just a different side. It felt like I went into a world basically that wasn't the world that I come from, or that I'm very familiar with, and I really enjoyed it. And I don't see myself ever living there, but it was so pleasant being there and being a guest and being so welcome. And I was like, I understand why people are in this world, and good on you for being in it. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm going to go. And I actually, there is something in me that loves, I love exploring all those worlds, because there are so many of them. And especially at the core of it, when there are good people, even if they're doing some fucking wacky things and saying some crazy stuff, I'm always drawn to that.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really interesting point to end on. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we start thinking about what we're going to be talking to in the coming weeks. For anybody who's still with us, those few brave souls who've stuck to the end, we will be on together again in 2 weeks' time. I think, Hugo, you're off next week. I'm going to try to figure out what I'm going to do on my own next week. I'm going to make sure that we still put something out, whether it's live or recorded. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's going to be a bit more short form no matter what. So we're not going to be doing our longer shows, but we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. And I think we still need to really confirm what it is that we're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time.
We do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure yet.
If let's say you have any thoughts or ideas, I don't even know why I'm bothering to put this on now, because the only people watching this are us, but let's stick to tradition. So if you want to reach out, contact us, engage with us, We have our socials up and running. So we have Twitter and Periscope, which we're getting some traffic on anyway from people who are watching us, or we are getting people tweeting back at us. I don't know if you noticed this week, people commenting on our videos on Twitter.
Awesome.
Facebook, nobody's going on that, us or subscribers. I mean, it's just like, it's there, it's ready, but it's like, it's almost as if I built a holiday home and we've never been, nor have we had any guests show up to. I mean, we've never rented the space out. It's, you know, we own it in principle. And then there's the Instagram page, which we haven't quite launched it yet. If you go and follow us, we don't have any videos or any pictures or any posts, but we're still going through the R&D.
The lengthy process.
Well, it's not. I think people think it's just anybody can just open an Instagram account and just, you know, start posting things. And I think
it's not that straightforward.
I don't think people appreciate the amount of craft that goes into setting up what the brand is going to be like, and, you know, what type of videos we're going to be posting, and, you know, how are we going to tag things? There's a whole meeting we need to have about tagging. But we're getting very close to nailing down these things before we launch our Instagram account fully. But it is there. We are on Instagram, so please do follow us. It's a worthwhile follow eventually. You know, it's an investment, and you're getting in at phase one. Yeah, it's if you're buying a house, Instagram is phase one right now. You're getting maximum value, and it's going to do nothing but go up in return.
It will be the place to be, and we haven't got this across the scrolling, but I want to just shout out to all those crazy people that are staying to the end, and please subscribe and like the video as well, because we are trying to really make this a serious thing. And if you're able to like and subscribe, then this is going to help the YouTube algorithm and help us get in front of more people, and hopefully we can then put more time and energy and effort into this thing and really hit this thing hard, which is, I think, both of our plans eventually. So yeah, if you like what we do, please support what we do by just dropping us a like and a subscribe.
And I'd like to, before we go, just give a shout out, because we had really enjoyable exchanges with people who watched the Bob Lazar video last week. One of which I want to apologize because I deleted one of the comments that we had. So I didn't mean to. I actually
someone
went on
that opposed your view, no doubt. Then
it was actually. It was somebody who was saying I was wrong about something. Let me delete.
Yeah.
So I just want to publicly thank them, because we're at such an early stage. I think we really want to, you know, let the people know who are participating in conversation. We just want to say thank you. So Ben Hove, Ben Hove, thank you for your comments on your views. But everybody who commented pretty much was siding with you on the fact that they believed in what Bob Lazar was saying. So thank you to Ben Hove. And then there's a comment by Casual35, who was questioning why I didn't believe that we had alien craft in Area 51. And I went ahead and deleted that accidentally. And I went onto his channel and I messaged him and apologized and said, I have the text, and I put the text back on and I pinned it. So that his comment is the only one you see when you turn the chat, when you go into the comment section.
Okay.
And we also had finally somebody on Twitter tweet us after watching the show. And let me just go to that and we'll make that.
I didn't see these, Shawn. Yeah, so I'd like to see that.
But let's put it on the screen then. Let me just bring up our Twitter account here.
Yeah, as you're doing that, Shawn, thanks again, guys, for the YouTube comments. We really do appreciate that. And it was nice to get some engagement about a very interesting topic. And extra special, extra nice that you all agreed with me and the fact that I won that argument. Thank you.
Where is it? I'm going to have to bring it up separately. Let me just find it here.
So this was the Lazar stuff as well, Shawn.
So this was on Twitter. I can't seem to. Let me just find it on. I'm just gonna have to search it from my own Twitter account. Bearded.
Yeah. So you do that, because I know you're awful at two things at once.
Yeah.
Again, guys, if you've got any questions, any comments off the back of Cobra Kai, what we were just discussing with our weird and wonderful world, then yeah, please leave us a comment. With these early stages, me and Shawn are really keen to make sure we answer all of them. And you've got a great opportunity to influence this show more than ever. So come forward with ideas of things that you want us to talk about or programs you might want us to check out, and we'll be sure to make some videos as a result, because we're after trying to create content that you guys want to see.
So I do have the screen here now, so I'm just going to share so we can take a look at the who's shared with us. So if you do want to give them a follow, that would be awesome. So just sharing my screen here. So we had comments. That's us now, or
okay.
Now. Yep.
I was going to say, because I'm moving. That's weird, right?
Yeah. Well, it's on a bit of a delay, but we had some tweets. Where is it? Tweets and replies. Yeah, you can tell I use social media a ton. Where? Oh, here it is. And we have a Ricky Marchant. So we had a nice little exchange here, and actually on Twitter they back me more than you. Actually, I think they don't back either of us. But so couldn't make it past couldn't make it past 8 minutes due to the constant buffering and delay. I think there were. I
Is
don't.
that us?
Yeah, that's us. That's us.
Oh, okay.
I think you're referring to you. But speaking of lack of context, neither Corbell or Rogan addressed the glut of holes in Lazar's story. Tom Manhood is the deepest researcher on Lazar, which I haven't checked that link out. I might just give that a check. So if you go on to our account, there's so much here, but one major point: Lazar didn't pass lie detector tests. He sat 2, both were inconclusive. And if you question that, why would you have to sit more than 1? And I wrote, great point, and didn't pick up on that about the lie detector. I personally maintain he believes the story. However, I don't think that means he worked on alien tech. Then he wrote, well, he was caught lying on tape regarding his MIT Caltech professors. They turned out to be JC and high school teachers, and has changed his story regarding many things. I don't understand those that think Lazar is merely deluded. So I want to make sure everyone has a voice, and I thought those were well laid out points. Ricky, not much of a Twitter following, so I'm wondering if that's somebody who maybe followed us on YouTube and created a Twitter account just to comment.
Who knows? We'll never know.
Yep. All right, mate. Well, listen, really enjoyed that show this week, and have a good weekend and good luck with what you're up to next week. I believe it is more property related hijinks you'll be getting into.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got an exciting week coming up, and especially next weekend where I go up to visit the pub. So that's why I won't be on the next podcast. And in turn, mate, I hope that work is less chaotic for you this week during this difficult transition period. And enjoy the rest of your birthday weekend.
Nice. Well, thank you, mate. And you have a good one, and we will catch up with you soon. And to everybody else, thanks for watching. Speak to you next week.
See you guys.